Hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. My name is Kelly and I'm a former wedding planner and blogger, and I'm obsessed with weddings. If you're planning a wedding in Ireland, you're in the right place. You're going to learn the tried and tested methods to planning your dream wedding without the added stress. Think of this as your one-stop shop for everything to do with planning your wedding in Ireland, with me, your new wedding planning bestie, and a cup of tea. This is Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Well, hello and welcome to Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online. Today, we're talking all about how to get legally married in Ireland, and I've enlisted the help of two amazing women. It's Romy McAuley and Louise Bradshaw, and I started the episode by asking them a whole bunch of questions that you guys had sent in on Instagram, all about giving your notice and documents you need and all kinds of different things. So I know that when you listen to this podcast episode, you're going to feel informed and inspired. You're going to learn a lot of new things. And so I think you're going to enjoy this one. So why don't we take a listen? Well, hello, ladies, Louise and Romy. I'm so excited to have both of you here talking about all the legal things to do with getting married. But before we start, I'd love for you guys to introduce yourselves. So Louise, why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Louise Bradshaw, and I live in Drumcondra in Dublin. And I qualified with One Spirit group of celebrants nearly over 2 years ago now. And I mostly carry out weddings just to the south, locations near enough to Dublin, down as far as Wexford and really up as far as Cavan. But I'm happy to talk to anybody, and I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. Thank you, Louise. And Romy, over to you. Tell us about yourself.
Hello. Romy McAuley is my name. I'm a solemnizer, so to all the legal weddings. I'm going into my 14th year of being a celebrant. So do all types of ceremonies, but mostly with weddings. I'm Australian, if you can't tell by the accent. I've been here for 20 years. I work all over the country, wherever I'm wanted and loved. And I work with a group of fabulous women. We're called Our Spiritual Earth. And I love what I do, love helping people, love this day. They're great weddings.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for being here. We've got so many questions from couples on Instagram who want to know all about how to get legally married in Ireland. So let's get started. Let me confess, I don't know a whole lot about getting legally married in Ireland. So I may ask a few questions that you guys think, really? How did you not know this? But I'm sure there are a lot of couples out there who are in the same boat as me and they don't know some of these things as well. One of the things is I know that you have to give notice in order to get legally married. And so I wondered if you could walk us through the process, because we had some questions on Instagram. For example, Mary asked us, how do you make the appointment? And we had Shauna saying, when do you make the appointment? Because she's getting married in March 2024. So when does she make the appointment? Deborah said, what's the earliest that she can apply to the registry? Is it 6 months? So can you guys walk us through how and when do you make this appointment to give your notice?
Absolutely. Louise, if you, we can both chat.
It's 3 months notice. Maybe I'll just say the basics and then we can add in, Romy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's a minimum of 3 months notice, no matter whether you get married in a church or any sort of legal ceremony. But because of COVID and, the website problem with the HSE and everything over the last year, people have been finding that very tight, and it was really impossible to get an appointment. There were actually no online appointments. So you can go onto their website, which is HSE, How to Get Married in Ireland, and you can register online to make an appointment. It's not really possible a lot of the time with the Dublin office, as far as I'm aware, Romy. And
it's Dublin, Kildare, and Wicklow that you actually can't book online through the online system. So any other county, you can very easily go online and go through the little database process. But those three counties, they're just the three busiest, and they just only take bookings directly. So you need to contact them through email or phone.
Wow.
Yeah. And I actually have a booking for next year for a year in advance from one of the registry offices down the country, but that is quite unusual. Most people that I've been dealing with anyway, couples are being told to ring back. So I would say 6 months. The license actually lasts. It's in the green form that everybody talks about is the marriage registration form. That's your license. It lasts for 6 months from the date.
The day you're getting married.
The day you're getting married. Sorry, 6 months from the date you're getting married. So
yes.
you give you 3 months notice of your intention to marry, and then your license lasts for 6 months from the date of your wedding.
That is on the actual marriage registration form, the MRF. So basically, when you're looking at giving your notification of intent to marry, it's a minimum of 3 months. We normally suggest somewhere between 6 to 9 months or even up to 12 months in advance. And when you contact the registry office, you'll be giving them the date of your intended marriage ceremony. And once you have done the process of the notification and you've been into the office, you receive what's called a marriage registration form, which is the MRF that's in the green folder. That document is not valid until the date of the actual wedding ceremony. So on that day, the day that you were meant to be getting married, it's then valid for 6 months. So if you had to postpone for any reason, so for example, the last 2 years with COVID, there was a lot of people that had to postpone. Once they came up to their original wedding date that is stated on the MRF, that page is then valid for 6 months after that. So if they had to push it forward, or if there was something that happens, if there's an accident or something horrible happens and you need to postpone, you could still technically use that form for a period of 6 months after your original wedding date. So
okay. That's really helpful. Okay, this might be a really silly question. And I know I said there's no such thing as silly questions. Okay, yeah, thank you. So you mentioned the green form, and I've seen a lot of people posting in the Help I'm Getting Married Facebook group saying,
yes,
I've joined the club. So is that something that you get after you have had your appointment?
That's right. When it's at the appointment. So what happens is when you make your appointment date with the HSE, and the two of you, so both parts of the couple, have to go into the HSE for the notification appointment. There's some paperwork and some supporting documents that you need to take in with you, which we can go through in a few minutes. Yeah. But basically, if everything is in order during that process of the appointment with the HSE registrar, what they will do is they'll just go through the checklist of having that supporting documents. Everything is ready and everything's right. They've got all of the information that's needed. They'll then print out the marriage registration form, the MRF, pop it into the green folder and give it to you on that day. You then keep it very safe until the day of your wedding, and you then give it to your solemnizer for your wedding ceremony itself. The only exception to that is if you are having an HSE registrar actually performing your ceremony for you. So if you're having a civil ceremony, which is with the HSE registrars, when you go in for your notification appointment and go through all of the checklist and all the supporting documents, they will actually keep the MRF for you. So those couples that are having either a registry office wedding or they're having a wedding in a venue but with an HSE registrar, they will not get the green folder, unfortunately. You could maybe ask them if you could have one, just purely for the photo.
Yeah, sometimes
there wouldn't be anything in it.
They're missing out because they didn't get their green folder, but that is the reason. Because they're having somebody from the registry office marrying them, so they don't get to take it. But it is important that we see it really before the wedding day. Well, I usually do anyway, to check it, just to make sure that the witnesses and the dates of birth and the venue and the time and everything is correct. If there is a change, we are able to amend them so long as the 5 parties initial them at the wedding. That's the 2 witnesses, the couples and the solemnizer.
Oh, okay. Okay, you guys are getting into some details here, and I want to ask you some questions.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, no, this is really, really helpful. So I know that, so you have your appointment. Now,
yes.
So I know you've mentioned, so Romy, you mentioned some documents, and then Louise, you mentioned a couple of details that you have to provide that then, you guys would check. What do you need when you go to your appointment? Is there anything that you have to gather before you get there? Anything that they're going to ask you to present that, you want to make sure you're prepared and you've got everything? Do you have a list of things that couples should have with them so they can start thinking about it now?
Definitely. And when the couple actually make their appointment with the HSC registrar, the office, the registrars or the officers in the HSC, they'll email out a checklist for the couple. So they will have the list of exactly what they need. It's a pretty basic kind of ID sort of list that the couple need to collate. Passport or driving license is the two most obvious ones. One of either one, it doesn't matter. The HSC normally prefer a passport, but obviously if you don't have one, you can have a driver's license. They also need proof of address. So if you have an ESB bill or a bank statement, you can have that. It needs to be dated within 3 months of the appointment. So that's something that's important. But you can normally get a bank statement by request, so you can kind of pick it up maybe the week before you have your appointment. There's also your birth certificate, which is very important. It's the long version of a birth certificate that you need to have. If you're Irish born and you can't find it down the bottom of your mother's wardrobe somewhere, you can, when you go in for your appointment, if you maybe bat your eyelids really nicely and say, I couldn't find it, and they may print it out for you there and then, but you can actually order your birth certificate online as well. If your birth certificate or if any document is coming from another country, you need to make sure it's in English or it's been translated as well, and that's actually really important too. So
yeah, it is actually. And on that note, if you don't speak English, you must bring an interpreter with you as well to your appointment. So,
That's very good to know. I didn't even think about that. Speaking of birth certificates, we had a question in from Louise on Instagram who says, if you're adopted, can you use your adoption certificate instead of your birth certificate?
You can. If it's been issued by the governing body from the country that you were adopted in, then yes, absolutely you can. So it's quite acceptable because obviously those people may not have a birth certificate. So yes, it is accepted.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. And so, Louise, I know you mentioned earlier some of the details that you would check on the form. You mentioned things like the wedding venue and the date and that sort of thing. Do you have to provide all that sort of information up front?
At the appointment.
You know that? So you've got to
at the appointment, they ask you for your venue. Maybe we'll discuss that at a later stage, what a legal venue.
Yeah.
I don't want to go into the details now. They also ask you the name of your solemnizer.
Okay.
And this is where a lot of people realise then that maybe their solemnizer isn't actually on the list, the registered list of solemnizers, because there are a lot of celebrants. Some people can't do legal ceremonies, but they can still do a wedding ceremony for you, but you won't be married legally.
Okay.
We can discuss that at a later stage as well. What you need to really is the names of your two witnesses and their date of birth, and they must be over the age of 18. Okay. I think that's it, Romy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Your venue and the name of your solemnizer and your date of your wedding.
And as Louise was saying before, if any of those details change leading up to the actual wedding, and this is why we need to have the green folder before the actual wedding ceremony starts, if any of those details, so say, for example, and obviously in recent times, if maybe one of the witnesses came down with COVID and couldn't attend the wedding, so you needed to have a new witness on the day, then the new person, we would just amend the MRF and we'd make a note of why there is a change of detail onto that document, and we all sign it during the actual wedding ceremony for then it to go back to the registry office, and the HSC will then update their system with the new details as well. So it's really important that you have, we get a chance to actually check and look at those details and everything as well. Anything on the MRF can actually be changed except for the couple themselves. They obviously can't. Must be the couple being married.
That makes
much almost anything else can be changed. And over the course of the last couple of years, and I'm sure Louise is the same, we've had some MRFs that have come to the wedding ceremony and every detail has changed. The date, the venue, even the solemnizer, the witnesses. So
and it's starting to happen again, I think, now with the upsurge of COVID again.
Yeah.
But that form is really important. I don't know if you want to cover that now, but if the couple forgot that form on the wedding day, we can't actually, there's no exceptions, marry them unless they go home and get the folder. That is the legal document. So you can have the most flamboyant ceremony in the world, but if we don't have the green form on the day. So I always just remind couples the night before, just, or else we have to wait. If it's local, it's okay, but otherwise they have to go home. And
I always say if there's a bride or grooms, I mean either or, and they're getting ready on site, I always say to them, put it in the suit bag, and then
that's
it goes, because no matter what the clothes are going,
have the form,
especially the wedding dress would more than likely be there, but obviously suits as well. So either or. I've had couples saying, yes, I'm pinning it on the front of the jacket, and it is leaving the house. So it is very important, because that legal aspect wouldn't be able to happen if we don't have those documents on the day.
Yeah, that's really helpful to know. Well, that was part 1 of the episode all about how to get legally married in Ireland. And next week, we're going to go into part 2, where we cover everything to do with different types of ceremonies and who can legally marry you, what to do if you want your friend to officiate the wedding, all of that. So Romy and Louise are back again for part 2 to answer all of our questions. But thank you so much for listening today. The Wedding Wednesdays with Weddings Online podcast is produced by me, Kelly, and it's mixed, mastered, and edited by Glenn Hartman. A special shout out to this week's wedding planning experts, Romy McAuley and Louise Bradshaw. For more wedding planning tips, advice, checklists, and more, visit weddingsonline.ie.